All right. Looking forward to this. Welcome back, everybody from Next to Line. I want to introduce somebody that I have a lot of respect for, man. I got to know over the last, I would say, maybe 12 months, 15 months, maybe, right?
Something like that.
And he's running a staffing organization out there in the great state of Idaho. Does a lot of different things, and we're super excited to invite him on. And thank you, Corey, for stepping in and taking time to do this, because I think our community and our subscriber base, who's the workforce community, I think you have a lot to offer, brother. More than you may know. I mean, you're doing a lot of good things, and I think you skipped a lot of chapters. So I want to kind of get into a little bit of that stuff. But before we get into that fun stuff, do me a favor, man. Kind of introduce yourself and kind of tell us how you got to a quick snapshot, how you got to WCL and your role.
My name is Corey Krueger. I'm the vice president at WCL Group. Started off as a management development training program at WCL and rose through the ranks over the past 6 years. I started off, my first job out of college was at a medical device company called Merit Medical. And it was really cool because I got to interview directly with the CEO of this $1 billion medical device company. And it was awesome to be able to do that because I got to learn so much about his leadership style right off the bat and be able to talk to him and have that door open from the get-go. I started off in a marketing role there, was promoted a few times, was working my way into sales. That was really my end goal, my career goal.
That's what you wanted? Like when you went to school, you were kind of focused on wanting to be in sales?
Yeah. I first wanted to be a surgeon.
You want to be a surgeon? Okay.
First wanted to be a surgeon. That was quickly shut down because I didn't like school that much. I didn't want to go to 12 years of school. And I also didn't like science, apparently. I got into business. What else would you do? But yeah, and I was going into sales. My dad, I would talk to every day on the way home from work because I had like a 30-minute drive. So I'd just call him up, and he ran a company, WCL, and we would just talk about business and kind of where the company was going and what he was seeing, what problems he was having and issues he ran into and his successes. And one day he called me up and was just like, what do you think about coming on to WCL? As I was in the middle of interviewing with, all over the country. And I quickly decided, absolutely, this is something I definitely want to do. And it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. It's been the most fulfilling thing to work with my father. And many people, can boo-hoo it, call it nepotism, but I took an opportunity, and it was actually a pretty big risk at the time. But here we are now, and we've grown the company quite a bit. And I'm really excited for the future.
Man, I love that, man. And by the way, we know each other a little bit, and, you work with my daughter, and, she's in the business and the industry. And, I know far too well, like what you mean and the perception that is like to have, working with your father or something like that. And I tell people, like, it's probably harder when people may perceive it's probably the hardest because, you tend to be, you hold them at probably a little harder because you want to make sure that there's not a perception that there's any type of favoritism. Like you probably get it tougher. Like I was a coach my entire life with my son playing baseball, and it's really tough being a coach's kid, right? Yeah. You don't get any shortcuts. You got to earn everything and beyond, right? Because of that perception of what people may think, right? So it's not all like, it's not a cakewalk. Let's put it that way.
I totally agree. You're definitely held to a higher standard, and you for sure have to earn it a little bit more.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let me ask you this. I'm going to take me back a little bit because you got some cool things. But first of all, I want to make a comment here. I love that you said when you were going to school, like, I know you obviously the surgeon thing and you quickly pivoted, but you mentioned to me about you wanted to be in sales, right? And that's something you were shooting for. You know how refreshing that is to hear, man? Because in my time when I grew up, sales was always like this thing. You're a salesperson. The perception of a salesperson. It was like frowned upon it's like almost like if you can't do anything else, then maybe you're a salesperson. Well, you can always do sales, right? Because they had this perception like of, and you could probably get into a little bit about car sales or running around or just, just a really false perception of what the profession has evolved to what today. Some of the most successful, actually the most successful CEOs and founders today grew up in the sales ranks and leaders, right? Sales is, I like to call, I'm a little biased, but I would say king. Sales is king, right? Sales cures a lot of different problems and issues. And, you have to be really resilient in this world. So sales is definitely not a cakewalk. And it's happy to hear that that's something you actually try to go for, because that's completely different from my generation.
I always just thought sales was fun. You get to talk to people and, you get to figure out what makes them tick and how to relate to people better. Customer service goes right along with it. And also client development and working with different people, working with different clients. You always have to have some form of sales in your career, especially if you want to be at the top,
Absolutely. You said that well. I think I agree with you. I think in any role in an organization, there's, sales and use sales aptitude in different ways, internally, externally, you name it. In every role you're in, there's a form of that type of, influence that you have to have in order to get things accomplished, right? Even project managers, you can negotiate, you got to sell, you got to make sure that, you're getting the business to buy in. I mean, there's a ton of different things that skill is very versatile, and it's good to have. It's an excellent skill set to have. Quick question on that. So where'd you go to school? Remind me.
University of Utah.
All right. So you stay home. No, not home.
Right next door.
Right next door. Okay.
Yeah, 5 hours
Your first
away.
time being away?
It was, yeah.
Yeah. And remind me, you got brothers, sisters?
I'm the youngest of 5.
Wow. So you're the youngest. So you're the baby of the family. I love it.
Correct. Save the best for last.
That's great, man. Can you give me a little history on WCL? Tell me a little about when your father got industry. How did you start this thing? How did it all happen?
Yeah, so the company was actually created in 1998 in California. And my father wasn't the initial owner. He bought in 2004 because he was working with the company. And then he took the leap of faith and bought into the company with one of his other friends at the time. And so there was 3 partners from 2004 to about 2019. And then my dad bought out his other partner and the other partner over the last 5 years. So he's the sole owner now. But the company began as, just working with 1 or 2 clients. ExxonMobil was always the number 1 client for them.
The flagship. That's what got you started.
We're still with them, luckily, today. It's been 27 years with them. So
says a lot.
Attribute a lot of our success to our partnership with Exxon. But when I got in the company in 2019, I had actually already developed a business development plan that I was just working on the weekends, where I was like,
really?
Could I take this company if that is a direction I want to go into? And I developed this plan, didn't tell my dad anything about it. And then when he hired me on, COVID actually hit shortly after. It was about 9 months later. And he goes, Corey, we might have to fire you. We've lost all our work, all this stuff. And luckily, the payroll protection program came into place, and our payroll was
huge.
Yeah, that was huge. But I had the opportunity. I didn't have anything to do. So I pitched him and his partner on this business development plan that I had in place.
Nice.
And yeah, it's been really cool to see too, because a few of the clients that I've put on there, we actually have contracts with today.
Congratulations, man. That says a lot.
Yeah.
So you were doing this like covert mission on the side, like on the weekends in your free time of creating this business development plan.
Yeah.
And when you sold it, you talk about starting an industry and getting hit with adversity right in the face that fast. At least you got it over with right away, right? Typically, sometimes not like that for everybody. They get it. Sometimes it's almost better that way. But sometimes people get in a really good economy, and then when they get hit in the face, they don't know how to deal with it. So you dealt with it from day one.
Pretty much, yeah. It was tough. But I remember just being like, "Are you kidding me? You're gonna fire me right after I my career plan?"
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What about growing up though? In your house and talking to your father coming up. Like my daughter, she grew up in the staffing industry, right? She's all her life she would hear, but when she really starts trying to understanding, in high school, later in college and stuff like that, she started really getting a feel for it. Were you the same way? Did you kind of understand fundamentally what? How to operate or how to be successful in a staffing organization or what the value proposition a staffing company brings a client?
So it was funny because my dad had a different take on the company when he was initially running it. And actually just before I got into the company, they had a service oriented approach. So it was more so SOW work. We didn't have a recruiting team at the time.
Oh.
There was 4 people in the entire company, and it was a staffing model, but they had a bunch of contractors working for certain managers, and they used their network to get these people, and just word of mouth. Really, our website was so outdated. But he always just focused on creating relationships
Yes,
and
sir.
making sure that everybody is taken care of, and they would create these solutions around what the client needed. And I just remember him like, talking to people and just acting like they're his best friend. And I'm like, who are you talking to in the back room over there? And it's just like one of his old buddies that now works as a contractor for WCL, or one of
Love
his
it.
buddies that's over like a manager at ExxonMobil, which he
Mhm.
doesn't even hang out with. He just has a working relationship like that with them. And I
Sure.
think that's one of the things that I really learned from him is how important those relationships are, and how important just being a friend to people is, and caring
That's
about
true.
people authentically. So that's how he ran the company, and he's been very successful with it. I've just kind of added another layer to that
That's
success.
awesome, though. Well, you could tell, like, talking to you and a little bit, I get to, obviously not my first time talking to you.
Yeah.
So I know you a little bit, but what I like is that you have that sense of pride. Like you're not just there to, fill a seat. You're trying to take this to another level. And that's pretty cool, man. You have a pride in that. And that you can't put a price tag on that, brother. That's right there. And like, you put the stuff that you learn. The biggest thing I would say, if I had to give anybody advice on staffing or anything in sales, is like genuinely build relationships. That's the foundation of everything, right? Everything else you can get good at, but you have to be in real relationships where you're like, them, like you care about them. You may not have do business with you today, but you generally have a relationship with them, right?
Yeah. It
They're
is so
people just like us, right? When they go through issues, they go through good times, bad times, and sometimes they just want to, have a good relationship. And you follow those relationships everywhere. I tell people, they go, "What's your territory? What's your geography?" I said, "We follow relationships. That's what we do. That's our territory. I don't know where it's going to take us. Maybe it took us to Latin America. We took us to Denver. It takes us to dark places, but wherever the relationship is, we have." So I love that you're on that path. I
I've
do
seen
want to
that.
ask you a question about Enterprise. I know you mentioned to me you worked at Enterprise. How was that experience? Because that was an awesome recruiting ground for us back in the day. Like, how long were you there, and like, what did you take from that type of training culture?
Yeah, I was there for 2.5 years, and I worked with a lot of my friends. So
Like
it was
10
very,
years.
but we were it was freezing cold half the year in the parking
Oof.
lot, parking garage in the Salt Lake City International Airport. So we saw a lot of famous people come in and out, but just a lot of people in general. And it was so cool. My favorite part of the job was just talking to random people, businessmen that would come in, what they did, kind of pick
Nice.
their brain for a second or two before I gave them a pitch on why they should get the collision damage waiver or upgrade their car. But yeah, it was just cool. Like, you develop a rapport quickly with these people, and then
That's
you
awesome.
try to, sell them something small. And, it was just really fun to kind of talk to a lot of different people. And one of the biggest things that Enterprise always taught was the client is always right. The customer is always right. And I've always taken that from that job. Just, you're there for the client, you're there to support your client. And at the end of the day, they might not be right, but they are right in our mind. It's better
Yeah.
for business,
Oh,
to
take the high
talk.
road sometime.
Yeah.
So I got a fun fact for you on Enterprise real quick. And correct me if I'm wrong, but let me ask you a question. They're big on culture and history. How did they come up with the name Enterprise? You remember that in training?
So I wasn't in a training program. I was a senior customer service rep because I wasn't
Mhm.
graduated from college yet, but I would train the management trainees.
Okay, got you. Did you leave before? Well, just to kind of let our subscribership know, what I read about it was, he was in the military in the Navy, and I think he was a Navy officer, if I have my facts right. But I guess he was on the USS Enterprise, and that's one of the things they named it. So I was like, man, Navy guy, like me and our producer on the show, so we're both Navy, so we have a little love for Enterprise folks,
Hell yeah.
and I always had a lot of respect too, because we had that organization. They did a lot of pride in recruiting and also in developing, you know, kids out of college, and they put them to a program. And typically the ones that came out of that wind up being pretty successful, very successful, either
Yeah.
at Enterprise or outside of that. But those foundational skills, are important. And he comes from the military, so there's a lot of good things that I've adopted when I was in the military that really resonate even today, right? So that's a little fun fact on your on Enterprise. I thought I would have got you on that one. So let me ask you. One thing I would mention about you that I want to say, put you up there. I think you're like straight up, like far beyond your years, man. You know, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm fortunate to talk to a lot of owners in our industry, right? And I would tell you, man, I think you're like chapters ahead in a lot of certain areas, man. So big props to you. I think it comes from pride, but you also want to you want to make it happen, man. Right? You're thinking where you're currently at today. You know, where do you want to? You don't have to give me any numbers or anything, but let's say if you had to blank exit, you know, 10x, 6x, 3x, 4x, whatever it may be, 5 years from now, or let's say even say 2030, what's a big win for you like there from 20 to 30? How much you want to grow this organization?
I hope my banker's not listening. I mean, I would love to, 5x the company by, 5 years from now, 2031. And that comes with a lot of different caveats, but, consistent growth is one thing that we really look at, and not growing too fast all at once, but consistently growing. And cash flow is one of the biggest things for growth as well, and being able to manage your cash flow. And you don't want to work harder for, less profitability too. No company wants to see that. So managing your growth, but we're investing a lot currently in business development and trying to grow into more clients, gives us a broader base and increases our, stability, so that if we lose a client, we're not in trouble.
You can weather the storm and those things happen, right? So I gotta imagine, I mean, do you mind sharing a little bit about your organization? I know you mentioned Exxon and stuff like that, but give me what is your core company like in WCL? What industry are you guys exclusively trying to focus in?
Energy, I think, is the main thing. And then like construction. We've worked with the biggest energy company in the world for a long time. And, we work with General Electric as well now, Chevron. We work with some really big names in the energy sector, and we've continued to grow into renewable energy, oil and gas. We've been in forever, but continuing to grow with the energy sector in general, just like, nuclear is becoming a big thing. There's all these data centers popping up everywhere. And one thing that people don't think about with these data centers is the energy it takes to make them work, make them go. So a lot of times they have to have power plants right next to them. They have to have energy sources right there. And the grid's continuing to expand rapidly. So we're very into the energy sector, and that's really what we always hung our hat on. But continuing to grow with the energy sector, whether that be oil and gas, whether that be renewable energy, whether that be these data center projects and semiconductors, that's the stuff we're really focused on.
That's awesome. That's great. I mean, well, based on everything, AI related, I mean, the outlook looks really strong. I mean, there's pick shovels businesses surrounding a lot of what it takes to push this, AI to the next level, where we need to get to as this industry needs to get to. I mean, it starts with the foundation is really the energy and everything, all that put together. I mean, they're looking for every source possible, right?
Exactly.
And these are your accounts today. So that sounds like, you're in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to, politics also plays a pretty big role in the energy sector, and just kind of following along like where the Trump administration wants to go. All the different administrations have different goals with their energy programs. So just trying to follow that and making sure that we're good whoever's at the helm, whoever's the president, that we're going to be okay. So, we've diversified into the offshore wind sector, renewable energy all over the country. And then, of course, oil and gas is always going to be around, whether people like it or not.
And I understand, like I guess the crude oil prices are down right now, right? They need to kind of get back to levels there. It's a little kind of danger zone area, I guess. Being in the industry, does that forecast look good? Is that be on the rise, going to start going back up, the price of crude oil?
Yeah, it depends, honestly, on the administration a lot, because they can flood the market with more oil. OPEC has a very big say in it as well. But I think Trump wants to keep fuel affordable. So we've seen a lot of the word of 2026 for a lot of our clients has been flat, just keeping everything constant, not producing too much more than they're producing today. So yeah, it's a very interesting industry to be in, just supply and demand and economics.
Have you noticed that, like, from the supply side, like from skill set and inventory, are the rates flat? Are they going up, or are they kind of more competitive going down? Like, where do you see the market right now from a worker perspective, from pay rates?
Our clients are always trying to save costs and
No
be
matter
most
what,
efficient.
no matter
Yeah,
what the economy's doing, right?
correct. So they also have to go with inflation as well and factor that into their rates.
Sure.
So we've seen some very high rates. I haven't seen any really drop a ton. I would say either staying constant or increasing from a pay rate standpoint.
So I love the fact, I like talking to people that, like, companies that, what I like about you guys have an identity, an SME, and a specialization, and kind of saying, no, let me try to own that space and try being everything to everybody.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a great formula for absolute success. And you guys have been doing that since 2004, I believe, or maybe even prior to that.
Yeah.
And is your
Nice.
father, like, was he a practitioner first? Was he an engineer first?
He was a project manager for a EPC company,
Okay.
engineering, procurement, and construction. So that's where he got his feet wet with Exxon in the first place, is through that company.
That's how he kind of built the relationship from there. And
Yeah.
what would you say the top 3 most in-demand positions in this space are right now?
Man, I would say field engineering work is always in vogue. Really depends on the projects. Like, there's certain phases of projects that we see a real uptick in certain positions. Like, if they're commissioning a energy project, they need commissioning engineers for a year or commissioning managers for 2 years. Construction, like managers are always in vogue. But yeah, I can really pin down 3 currently that are
That was
super.
hot. Like, in IT world, like, we always like, I guess it's for us, it's like, we know that, man, if you ever get right now anybody that has at least 6 months experience in AI development or anything, like put integration like that, like, absolutely can put them work anywhere right now. I
That's
was
a
just
good
curious,
point.
demand, like, that kind of demand. But I understand, like, field engineers. I understand, like, also project management in general in your space is huge,
It
right?
is,
So,
absolutely. If there's candidates that have semiconductor experience from a
mhm,
construction standpoint, I
mhm.
mean, everybody's looking for that currently. Same thing with data center construction experience. They're building these everywhere. So, and it's a fairly new industry. So there's not a ton of people that have these skill sets. But if
What's
you,
wild about that was back in like this business it evolves so much. It's like history repeating itself. Like, for a long time back in the day, they were building data, the first generation data centers, right? And then everything went virtualized, and then they were getting away from to go to the cloud. Now it's like you need both. So now they're coming out with these AI super data centers, which are insane, right? And you need
yeah,
all this land. So what I love about what's happening right now, and what's going to do for the economy, it feeds everybody, right? You talk about, like for me, I never really focused on engineering ever. And I started learning about your stuff, and I started learning about, like, what AI and that push to get there, you need all these complementary things to happen first. So it's kind of like, this is such good. To me, it's timing, but it's a good time in our business. It should be a good outlook. Hopefully between now and 2030 should be a pretty good run. So
yeah, people are saying AI is going to replace all these jobs, but they don't think about how much creation these data centers and, like, there's going to be a lot of jobs needed to create all of this infrastructure as well.
So let me pivot a little bit on you, man, because I love talking to you, especially about your, different generation, right? Not that you're a kid, you got some little scars on your belt notch, right? You skipped some years, right? And as far as, like, the experience, you probably have to inherit and probably had to do things sooner than most people, right? Especially when you're running a business, right? What kind of advice would you give um, kids that are coming out of school today? And because if right now 77% of, let's say, computer science degree guys, and just in general, they're struggling to get in the door. What kind of advice would you give that generation right now?
Use your network as much as you possibly can. The amount of referrals that we get, and we place candidates that have referrals, is so huge. Just having one connection at a company, or being able to just say, hey, I know this guy who works here, gets you in the door more times than you'd think. And at the very least, we'll get your resume at the top of the pile, or near the top of the pile, so that you get looked
To
at.
get you, I tell people, it'll get you an at bat, right? At least get
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
I'm a big
But yeah,
sports
I
guy.
think If same. But I think using your connections, I wouldn't say a lost art, but I feel like some people that are younger don't think about it as much. They just think,
Hmm.
hey, I've got this piece of paper, I graduated college, and I should be entitled to a job.
Right?
There's a lot of people out there that are looking that have more experience than a college grad as well.
I agree. Let me ask you another couple questions about some stuff that I'm dying to hear. What would you say in your time so far, right? What's the biggest lesson you learned so far? Like, where'd you like, oh, man, I didn't, people consider failing. Yeah, failure is just part of everything. You got to fail in order to win. It's on the way to winning, right? But what would you say biggest lesson you learned so far early in your career?
It's a good question. I always go back on patience, and I tell our employees this a lot, is like, just be patient and trust the process. Things don't happen overnight, and you got to give it time and stick with it to really see things pay off. It took me, like 3 or 4 years to land one of my biggest contracts, and just not giving up and just sticking with the plan, continuing to stay in touch. It's a really hard industry, the staffing industry, to break it into new clients and get new contracts.
Oh, definitely.
Staying consistent, patient, and sticking with it.
I love that, man. See, that kind of advice, I love that, man. You're like an old soul, brother. You have you got some old soul chops in there, because those things are huge, man. Like, let me ask you, like, when you were when you were in school in those ranks in that time frame, did you have the same belief there, or did you do you ever hear somebody ever tell you, man, you got to use your network? And you're like, yeah, whatever. Or were you like, did you know that was the case?
I was in a fraternity, so they always kind of pitched that, like, this is one of the reasons, like, why you want to be in a fraternity, is because you'll walk away with so many connections. And that was very true.
That's good.
That was always in the back of my mind, like, yes, connections are so important. And I heard that from a lot of people that I looked up to in life.
That's good.
But what was the other piece of that question?
Yeah, like, were you, listening, like the advice you're giving today, was that kind of like you always kind of knew it, or you're like, yeah, I don't know about that? Because the advice you're giving today, like when you give to certain young guys today or certain people, they look at me like, whatever.
No, yeah.
You always know something else. It's stuff that we kind of know, but it's so true. It's so fundamentally true. If you really come down to it, like, how do you get into these certain accounts? The patience is part of it. People I feel like Instagram has, for those tools and Snapchatting or whatever you call it, they kind of like give a false sense of success. Like, they show you with the Lambo or whatever. They show you at the finish line, but they don't show you how long it took to the finish line, how many times you fell, and how many times you had to get up, right? Yeah, tell the story.
No one shows that side of things. Everyone just shows, the end result. But it takes so much time and patience and consistency and getting up every day and continuing to grind. And that's definitely not something that I thought about coming out of college. I was like, I'm going to be successful right away. And I was successful in certain jobs that I had previously. So I was always like, oh, I'll succeed at this. Like, I'll succeed at everything.
That's good, though.
As you rise through the ranks too, it gets harder and harder. And just going back to patience and trusting the process, really.
I love that, man. That's really, like I said, far behind your years, in my opinion. Like, I'm learning that maybe 3 years ago, and I got a ton of time on you, brother.
My dad and his partner always kind of held back. They're like, we're keeping the training wheels on. We're keeping the training wheels on. Because I always wanted to, full throttle, go after stuff. And they're like, just be patient. Just be patient. So I attribute a lot of that to them. For sure.
So I got to ask you, how good did it feel after 3 or 4 years? You're chasing that account. You're really trying to figure out a way to get in there. The account that you guys didn't work with in the organization, to bring that to your pops and say, I got in here, man. How cool was that?
One of the best feelings ever. The longer you wait, the more it's, worth it. And just, it feels so much better because you really worked for it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So let me ask you this, because I like asking, like, some of those lessons learned and stuff like that. And I appreciate you sharing that. And some of the advice that you give to the next generation, or like in your case, current generation, right? Which I love. By the way, this is the first time, like, we're freestyle over here. So, like, I think you're the first time, like, we're talking to a guest that's actually currently in that generation, which I think is cool. So I think everybody, I think we talk about, oh, we have to give so much advice and we have to do so much different things for the next generation. But I think we have as much to learn from the next generation as what we want to teach them. They need to be teaching us. So let me ask you a question in a different way. What kind of advice would you give to like, the old cats like me, advice on working and being successful with this next generation?
That's a good question.
That is a good question, right?
Yeah, I think just trying to relate to the younger generation.
Tell me, I like that.
There's so much technology now and things move so fast. And you're on TikTok, like scrolling up and down, and everything's just so much faster paced, I feel like. But I don't know like what advice I'd give the older generation. I think maybe just trying to relate to them more.
That's good.
And also just trying TikTok or like trying the different things that the younger generation does now, and not just being like, no, I don't do that. No, I don't.
No. So I'd be a little more open-minded.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, and staying up to date on the, newest trends and stuff. It's always fun to see an older guy like try to talk to you about that kind of stuff.
Definitely. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I'm lucky. I'm a little blessed there because my daughter, she kind of conditioned, trying to teach me a lot of those different things, especially with social media and even down to the clothes I wear. She picks out I just tell her, help me out, man. Just try to make me look younger. She's always hooking me up with some stuff. So I get a lot of compliments, and I tell people it's not because of me. It's because my little girl, she's always looking out for me. Man, this is good. Let me ask you, how important do you feel, so you have a marketing background, and how important is marketing to your organization right now?
It's becoming more and more important. I think just having an online presence has been huge, and I'm so thankful for Karina for building our brand, but we've already seen benefits from it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, like people will see our stuff, whether they like it or not. You'd be surprised how many people like come up to us and say, I saw your stuff online. They'll just say online, but it's really on LinkedIn. Like a 60-year-old guy will be like, oh yeah, I saw your stuff online. And I'm like, you saw it on LinkedIn, huh? But yeah, there's just something about like building your brand and letting people know that you're out there and just having your brand be visible. It's a really hard thing to create like stats around to really show like how much sales it drives, but it is so important. And I've always known that. It's just a really hard thing to pitch to like your ownership and say, hey, we need to invest in marketing because it's going to result in more revenue, because you can't really track it.
It's hard to see the benefit, the win, but you're right. It's pretty cool. You had me just cracking up. I had to share with you. So like you said, online, and I just remember this movie you ever see that movie with Vince Vaughn and the other guy, Owen Wilson, about
Wedding Crashers? Oh yeah.
Wedding Crashers are classy, but you know which one? I forgot the name of it. At Google, they were interns, and the guy was saying on the line versus on. I just literally almost fell off my chair when you said online right now. I just thought about that scene, and he's like, I get it, online. It was classic. Great movie, man. Great movie. But what I like about that movie, I'm gonna watch it again, but you should check it out too, because let me tell you, the storyline there is like they wind up winning because they kind of learned from each other generation. Those guys didn't know, they knew sales, they knew relationships, but they were teamed up with this analytical and this new next generation. And then they wind up, when they fused together, they dominated. So one of the things I think what I'm excited about working with you and partnering with you a bunch of stuff is that I think you almost grab the best of both worlds, right? You know what I'm saying? You fuse it together. It's going to be hard to beat. It's hard to beat when you have offense and defense like that, right?
Yeah. I think Pop saw that too. He's like, he's young blood in here.
That's right.
Hair.
Man, did he ever share that with you? Like, man, you know what? He just told you, I know you shared with me that you guys would speak a lot on the phone. And I think that's awesome, by the way, especially as a father. And I would tell you, man, I love those phone calls. Yeah. But how cool was it, man, when he gave you a call and said, man, I need you, what do you think about coming in?
I still remember it to this day.
That's awesome, man.
I was so stoked. Yeah. It was really.
And is that something you were trying to push to do, or just kind of like on your mind? Like, were you like trying to, man, I really want to work with my pops. I want to get in the industry.
It always crossed my mind, but I wasn't like pushing on it too hard. I thought this guy's done so much for me in my life. He puts me through college. He's went to all my basketball games, went to all my football games, coached my baseball teams. And it's like, how could you ever pay somebody back for all the time they spent and all that? And I'm like, I actually see some value that I could provide to this company. And if I had the opportunity, I would love to, pay him back through working with him on a day-to-day basis and trying to build his legacy even further. So it was,
man, I think, man, that you work with that sense of pride like that, brother, it's almost impossible to fail. You can't. Like that right there. I think that is one of the biggest value propositions because that spreads. And let me tell you, I think customers more than ever, they just want to deal with real people, right? There's a lot of people do what we do, right? There's a lot. And it's kind of like the how you do it and, generally do it. So you want to get from that. There's a vendors list and there's a partner list, right? Let's get on that partner list. And I think you're well on your way, man. I mean, I'm not saying it to say that, but I'm just seriously, I have a lot of respect for you, Corey, man. You're a good dude. You're smart and you're thoughtful, like intentional, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you look at things, you seem very calculated, which is great to have in that business acumen like that at such a, different, younger age, right? I inherited that a little later, but, you got an incredible future ahead of you, brother. I need you to help me out and give me some energy and oil, gas, stock, teach me. I want to really kind of jump on that wave too, man. I've been learning and reading a ton. So I think you're right. We're going to definitely be on my speed dial, brother.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And you've already taught me so much too, Cesar. Like
I can tell you what not to do.
Conversation in Vegas when we met at that conference, I was like, who is this guy? He's a racehorse. He knows so much about the industry. I could learn so much from him. So, and I already have. So it's been a great relationship.
It's a fun business. I still have a lot of love for the industry. It's still cool. Tell me how cool it is kind of giving somebody, like, give them the good news that they got the job. Pretty cool.
It is. It's life-changing.
It is. That never gets old, in my opinion. I hate the resignations, but like the good stuff when you get that good news, brother, like it's awesome, man.
It is.
So you got to do me a favor, man. As we wrap up, let me ask you a question. Give me 2 pieces, quick advice, or just, however you feel like, what would you want to tell your customers that you serve today for WCL and the ones that you look forward to hopefully, supporting as well? What can they expect from you and your organization?
Yeah, we offer more than just, a staffing agency. We really try to take things to the next level and develop relationships with both our clients and then also our contractors. And it's so funny to hear from our contractors that have worked with other agencies in the past. Like, these guys don't even talk to me. They just kind of set me up and,
Bye.
Yeah, they don't talk to me after that. And I go out and take them out to dinner. And this is actually one of my favorite parts of the job is going and talking to our contractors and seeing how the project's going, what we can do better. And then also just hanging out with them and being a friend to them. And it is so much fun. I was out on the East Coast for 2 weeks in November, just going up and down, meeting with our contractors and clients. And it was just really cool to see the different walks of life that people come from. And it goes back to that sales, just like talking to people and relating to people. You can't replace it.
You learn a ton too, man. The contractor, that's the lifeblood of the organization. But I love the fact that you spend time with them. They teach you so much about the industry. It's amazing.
Yes.
I can't thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And we got to do this again. I got to get you for a chapter 2. I want to see how close we're getting to 5X. And anything I can ever do for you, man, you feel free to, you know my number. You reach out to me anytime. But thanks for sharing and being so transparent about stuff, brother. That's what it's all about here. At Next in Line, the mission is just to pay it forward. You never know things that you say are going to resonate with people at the right time. So I really appreciate what you did.
Yeah, I love this podcast too. It's a great idea, and I can't wait to see where you guys take it. Brian Krueger,
shout out to man. You're a good man. You got a good guy. You got a good guy on your wing. So he's very prideful. He's going to make it happen. Corey, brother, thank you for being on, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.
Thanks, Cesar. Good talking with you.